holding on Daf Mem Vav, Amud Aleph, somewhere towards the bottom. Exactly where? Oh, Tanu Rabbanan. The first one on the line is Ha, and then it says Tanu Rabbanan. It's maybe like 10 lines up from the bottom. Yeah. So Tanu Rabbanan. So we're talking a little bit about Gerut. Yeah. So this is where the sugyot of Gerut are. So Tanu Rabbanan. Ger shemal velo taval. You have a ger who he did the brit milah, but he didn't do mikveh yet. Okay?
We did yesterday.
So, yeah. So now we're going to go through the main bright of it. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Hareze ger. Rabbi Eliezer says this is a full ger. Milah is enough. Sheken matzinu ba'avotenu shemalu velo tavlu. Because we find avotenu doesn't mean Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Avotenu means in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, they did brit milah and they didn't do tevilah. So brit milah is enough. We're gonna get to the how they know this in a moment. We're gonna change it up a little bit. Let's see. Taval velo mal. If he did tevilah but not brit milah, Rabbi Yoshua Omer Harei ger. Rabbi Yoshua says that's enough. Rabbi Yoshua says tevilah is enough. You don't need milah. Sheken matzinu beimahot, because that's what we had by the ladies. They didn't do brit milah, so the men also don't have to do brit milah. Shetavlu velo malu. V'chachamim omrim, chachamim say, taval velo mal, mal velo taval, en ger ad sheimol veitvol. Chachamim say you need both. Okay, so Rabbi Yoshua was the one that said just going to the mikveh is enough. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yoshua nami nelif me'avot. Why doesn't Rabbi Yoshua learn that milah is also just enough? Maybe Rabbi Yoshua should say just going to the mikveh is enough, or just getting brit milah is enough, just like the Avot, in the men in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, they did brit milah. Rabbi Eliezer nami nelif mi imahot, and why doesn't Rabbi Eliezer learn from imahot, that from the ladies that they went to the mikveh? So just going to the mikveh is enough, meaning both of them should say either or. Now maybe you'll tell me no, you can't learn that for men just mikveh is enough because for ladies just mikveh is enough, because for ladies it's not possible to do milah. But for men, it's possible to do milah. So maybe by men that it's possible to do milah, they also have to do milah. So maybe you'll tell me, Ein danin efshar mishi'i efshar. You cannot learn men that's possible for them to do brit milah from ladies that's not possible. So maybe that's why we don't learn that tevilah is enough for men as well. So the Gemara says, if that's what you want to tell me, V'atanya, Rabbi Eliezer Omer minayin Pesach dorot she'en ba ella min hachulin. How do we know that Pesach, Korban Pesach can be bought only from chulin, meaning you can't use Maaser Sheni money to buy a Korban Pesach? How do we know that? So Ne'emar Pesach b'Mitzrayim and Ne'emar Pesach b'Dorot. There's a parsha of Korban Pesach, of Pesach Mitzrayim. And then there's Pesach Dorot. There's Korban Pesach, the commandment to do it for all generations. So Mat Pesach ha'amur b'Mitzrayim in ba'ela min hachulin. Just like Pesach, the Bnei Yisrael in Mitzrayim were commanded to take Korban Pesach, they couldn't use Maaser Sheni. So Af Pesach ha'amur leDorot in ba'ela min hachulin. So too Pesach, Korban Pesach, that they brought in the later generations, they were not allowed to use Maaser Sheni money. So Amar le Rabbi Akiva, this is what Rabbi Eliezer said. Amar le Rabbi Akiva, v'chi danin efshar mshi efshar. What, you can't, there was no such thing as Maaser Sheni in Mitzrayim to take Korban Pesach from. So you can't say, because they weren't allowed to use Maaser Sheni in Mitzrayim, you're not allowed to use Maaser Sheni money to buy a Korban Pesach now as well. What do you mean? They didn't have Maaser Sheni money in Mitzrayim. Amar le Rabbi Eliezer said to him, Afal pishi efshar raya gedolahi. Even though it's not possible, even though there was no such thing as Maaser Sheni in Mitzrayim, still this is a good proof. So what do you see? What's the point of this? Rabbi Eliezer holds, even though something is not possible, but you could learn from it to something else. So he learns that just like in Pesach Mitzrayim, it was not possible to use Maaser Sheni money. Still, you could learn from there that you cannot use Maaser Sheni money to buy a Korban Pesach even in later Korban Pesach. So also he should learn by the men that they don't need milah, tevilah is enough. Because by women, tevilah is enough to become a full ger, a gioret. So by men also, tevilah should be enough to become a full ger. Even though it's not possible, he still learns. You see that Rabbi Eliezer still learns even though it's not possible. So the Gemara says, "V'nilmadi mena." So why don't we learn from it? Why don't we learn that just like by women, tevilah is enough, by men, tevilah is enough for Rabbi Eliezer? So Ella rather, says the Gemara, betaval velo mal kule alma lo pligi demahani. Right, top of the next page. If a ger does tevilah, he goes to the mikveh and he doesn't do brit milah yet. So everybody agrees demahani, that's good enough. Everybody would agree that tevilah by itself is good enough, except for chachamim. Meaning everybody would agree means Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. Ki pligi b'mal velo tava. When do they have a machloket, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua? When you have a ger who did brit milah, but he didn't do tevilah. So there's going to be three opinions, like we had in the Braita. Chachamim say you need both. That's for sure. Question is, what about Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua? So we're saying the machloket is everybody agrees. They both agree if you just do tevilah, that's enough. They're machloket.
They both not agree.
Yeah.
They say you have to do milah.
Right. So now the Gemara is changing because he should be able to learn from women that tevilah is enough. So the Gemara is saying that both of them agree. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua both agree that tevilah is enough. What they argue about is just milah, right? Ki pligi on the second line. Ki pligi b'mal velo taval. When do they have a machloket? When somebody did brit milah, but he did not do tevilah. Rabbi Eliezer yalif me'avot. Rabbi Eliezer learns from avot that they did brit milah. Rabbi Yoshua ba'avot nami tevilah hava. And Rabbi Yoshua says no. You can't learn from the avot that brit milah is enough because they also did tevilah. So minale. How does he know? How does he know that they did tevilah? Meaning the Gemara is going to explain later. The women we know did tevilah because what else was there for them to do? They must have done tevilah. But what's his proof that the men did tevilah? That's what the Gemara is asking. How do we know that in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, before Matan Torah, sometime before Matan Torah, the men did tevilah? How do we know that? So ilema michtiv lech elam kidashtam hayom umachar v'chibesusim lotam. The Gemara says maybe you'll tell me from this pasuk. Pasuk says that Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu lech elam v'kidashtam hayom umachar, go sanctify Bnei Yisrael v'chibesusim lotam. They're gonna have to wash their clothing. So wash their clothing usually means take their clothing to the mikveh. So ma bimkom she'en taun kibus taun tevilah. Certain types of tumah that they don't require you to take your clothing to the mikveh, but the person himself has to go to the mikveh. So makom she'taun kibus, in a place where the person himself has to go to the mikveh, eno din she'taun tevilah, for sure he should have to go to the mikveh. Meaning if he's taking his clothes to the mikveh, for sure he himself has to go to the mikveh. So if Hashem is telling Moshe, go tell Bnei Yisrael to wash their clothes, then that means they should go to the mikveh also. That means they had tevilah. So the Gemara says, no, Dilma Nikiyut Balma. Maybe it's just wash their clothes to be clean and nice for the Ma'amad Har Sinai, but not necessarily does it mean that it has to be a halachic taking the clothes to the mikveh. So you don't have proof from there that they went to the mikveh. Maybe that's just clean their clothes. Ella mehacha. Rather, the Gemara says, you want to know proof that the men had mikveh, had to go to the mikveh from this. It says, Vaikach Moshe et Adam vayizrok ala mizbeh ala am. So Moshe took the dam and he poured it on. This is at the very end of Parshat Mishpatim. It like finishes up with Ma'amad Har Sinai. So it says that Moshe Rabbeinu took the dam and he sprinkled it on the people. V'gemiri, and we know for a fact that ein haza'ah below tevilah. Anytime there's haza'ah, anytime there's sprinkling of dam, there's tevilah. So we're assuming that because of this, the Gemara is saying this is Rabbi Yoshua's proof that Bnei Yisrael had tevilah. I'm sorry, this is his proof that Bnei Yisrael had tevilah because Moshe Rabbeinu sprinkled the dam on them. So if they sprinkled the dam on them, they had tevilah. So that's his proof. Okay, Rabbi Yoshua Tevilah be'imaot minalan. Okay, so what about the Tevilah for imaot? That was for the men. What about for the ladies? How do we know that they had Tevilah? Svarahu, to Svara, you have to say that the women had Tevilah. Dim ken b'ma nichnesu tachat kanfei hashchina. Because if not, they don't have milah. So what did they do? What action did they do to enter into the Shekhinah? They must have done, it meaning to enter into becoming like Gerim. They must have done Tevilah. So it's kind of mashma from this Gemara that at Har Sinai is when Bnei Yisrael had the status of Bnei Yisrael and they became quote unquote like Gerim. There's a lot of discussion about this, but he sprinkled the dam on them. Yeah.
Where he took the dam from?
The Gemara, the pasuk says that he shechted an animal.
In Har Sinai.
At the end. No. The first Ma'amar Har Sinai.
When they did
First time, not the first luchot. Yeah, before he went up to get the luchot.
Or before to
Yeah. Before he went up to get the luchot. Right. This is Shavuot. Right. Shavuot is when Ma'amar Har Sinai was, and then he went up for 40 days, and then he brought the first set of luchot. So this was the first before he went up for 40 days. Okay. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Leolam enoger ad she'imol ve'itbol. So Rabbi Chia bar Abba says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, like Chachamim, that you need both. You need Milah and Tevilah. So the Gemara says Peshita. That's obvious. That's the rule number one in halacha. Yachid v'rabim halacha kerabim. Obviously, halacha is going to be like Chachamim. It's rabim. So the Gemara says no. Man Chachamim Rabbi Yossi. Chachamim is not really the rabim here. Chachamim is Rabbi Yossi. We're using the word Chachamim to refer to the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. That's the chidush. He's saying halacha is like Chachamim means like Rabbi Yossi. It's not really a group of Chachamim. It's just Rabbi Yossi. Now, how do we know that's what Rabbi Yossi holds? The Tanya. Haresha Bava Amar. So let's say you have a ger who he comes and he says Malti velo tavalti. He comes to the Beit Din and he says, listen, I did brit milah a few days ago. I didn't do mikveh yet. So matbilin oto umabakach divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says just take him to the mikveh. You don't need to check, if his milah was a kosher milah or not. It doesn't matter. Tevilah is enough. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Tevilah is enough. Just take him to the mikveh umabakach. Who cares about the milah if it was kosher or not kosher? Tevilah is enough. Rabbi Yossi Omer ein matbil. Rabbi Yossi says no, you can't do that. You have to first check to make sure that the Brit Milah was kasher, and then you take him to the mikveh. Because Tevilah by itself is not enough. So you see that Rabbi Yossi holds you need both. Lefikach, the Braita continues and says, therefore, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who said that just Tevilah is enough, so matbilin ger b'Shabbat. If a ger already had a Brit Milah, you can take him to the mikveh on Shabbat. It's not considered becoming a ger on Shabbat. Because if he already had milah, Rabbi Yehuda holds milah is enough. So you see Rabbi Yehuda holds either milah is enough or tevilah is enough. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Omer ein matbilin. Rabbi Yossi says no. If he had a milah and now he's coming to go to the mikveh on Shabbat, you can't take him on Shabbat because you can't do a gerut on Shabbat. That type of tevilah changes it's not just a different type of tevilah. That type of tevilah changes his status that you cannot do on Shabbat. It's mitaken. Okay. Amar Mar. So we had two lines in the Braita. The first line in the Braita said that if a ger comes and he says, I did milah, now I want to go to the mikveh. So Rabbi Yehuda says, okay, tevilah by itself is enough. Let him go to the mikveh. You don't need to verify anything about the brit milah. And Rabbi Yossi says, no. You can't just take him to the mikveh. You need to first verify that the brit milah was a good milah or do hatafat dam or something, and then you take him to the mikveh. And then the second application of their machloket was a ger who did milah, and now he's coming to do tevilah on Shabbat. So Rabbi Yehuda says milah by itself was enough. Let him go on Shabbat. And Rabbi Yossi says no, you cannot. He can't. It's mitaken to go on Shabbat. Because this is going to be a conversion. So Amar Mar. Lefikach matbilin ger b'Shabbat. So the Gemara now picks at the second part of the Braita, where they're having a machloket about a ger who did milah and he's coming to do tevilah on Shabbat. Rabbi Yehuda says it's okay because this tevilah is not doing the conversion. He already had brit milah. So Gemara says pshita. Kevin dabar Rabbi Yehuda b'chadasagi echad amal lefanenu matbilin. Since once Rabbi Yehuda already said that one of those things is enough, either milah or tevilah is enough. So if he already did milah, that should be good enough. So let him go to the mikveh on Shabbat, obviously. So the Gemara says, no, my lefikach, ma'u detema. My lefikach, why do you need this lefikach? So the Gemara says, ma'u detema, l'Rebbe Yehuda tevilah ikar. So from just the first line of the Braita that says they have a machloket about this guy who walks into Beit Din, and he says, I did brit milah already. Can you let him go to the mikveh or no? So I would have thought, Rabbi Yehuda says, take him to the mikveh. I would have thought, because the milah doesn't even mean anything. Milah by itself is also not good. You need mikveh, so take him to the mikveh. So I would have thought tevilah ikar, v'tevilah b'Shabbat lo dekametaken gavra. But if in the second case, I would have thought that Rabbi Yehuda says no, you can't do tevilah because tevilah is the main one. So therefore, kamash malan, we need the second case to come teach me that no, milah by itself also works, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Okay. The Rabbi Yehuda right? Kamash malan, the Rabbi Yehuda ha bai. The Rabbi Yehuda, either one is good enough, either milah or tevilah. Okay, now it says the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi Omer ein matbilin. Rabbi Yossi says we do not take the person to the mikveh. Right, Rabbi Yossi said when the guy comes into Beit Din and he says, I have a brit milah, I did milah yesterday, and now I want to come do the tevilah. So Beit Din cannot just take him to the mikveh. They have to first verify that his brit milah was a kasher brit milah. So pshita, that's obvious. The came with Rabbi Yossi tarti bainan, or Rabbi Yossi said also on Shabbat ein matbilin. Right, if the guy comes on Shabbat, you cannot do the tevilah because he needs both. You need both, right? You need the person to go to the brit milah and tevilah. So if he's coming to do it on Shabbat, even though he already had a brit milah, if he's coming to go to the mikveh on Shabbat, that tevilah is going to complete the gerut, and that's going to be an issue to do on Shabbat. Tekevan dama Rabbi Yossi tarti bainan tikune gavra b'Shabbat lo metakninan. Once Rabbi Yossi says that you need both, so even if he already did the brit milah, but to go to the mikveh on Shabbat would be completing the gerut, and that would be mitaken gavra. And on Shabbat, we don't do that. So, ma'od detema Rabbi Yossi milaikar. The Gemara says no. From the first case, I would have thought, according to Rabbi Yossi, that milah by itself is enough. V'atamud lo have milah befanenu. And in the first case, where the guy comes to Beit Din, and he says, I did milah yesterday, last week, a few days ago, and now I want to do the tevilah. That in that case, where the milah wasn't in front of us, then you can't take him to the mikveh. But when we know that the milah was done, so that milah is the ikar, I would have think. I let him go to the mikveh because I know the milah was done and the milah is good enough. That's what I would have thought. Let him go to the mikveh on Shabbat. So kamash malan, the Rabbi Yossi tarti bai. So therefore, I need both cases to teach me that Rabbi Yossi needs both. Okay, so basically, what we just said was the machloket. We have a three-way machloket, right? Rabbi Yoshua, Rabbi Eliezer, and Chachamim. And in this braita, we bring two sides of the machloket. We bring that Rabbi Yossi is a shita of Chachamim, and Rabbi Yehuda is a different shita, a fourth shita. But either way, what do we have? We have machloket here, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yehuda holds we need two cases to bring out both points of the machloket. That Rabbi Yehuda holds milah is enough, tevilah is enough. We see that from the first case where a guy comes in, Rabbi Yehuda says, just take him to the mikveh, that's good enough. And milah also is enough because Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda says if a guy comes in and he doesn't have milah, and he already has milah, let him go to the mikveh on Shabbat because milah was enough. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Yossi says in both cases, no, you need both. When the guy comes in and he already has milah, he says, I have milah, you can't do tevilah because you need to make sure the milah was good. Mm-hmm. So milah you need. And also, when a guy comes to, he did milah in front of us, and now we want to take him to the mikveh on Shabbat. Also, he says, no, that's not good enough. That you cannot do on Shabbat because you need the tevilah as well. And you can't do it on Shabbat if the tevilah is doing the gerut. So Rabbi Yehuda says you need both, either or, and Rabbi Yossi says you need both. Okay, says the Gemara a little bit further. Let's do a few more lines until the bottom of the Amud. Okay, Amar Rabba Uvdahava Berabichia. Rabba said there was a story, something one time happened in the home of Rabbi Chia bar Rebbe. V'Rav Yosef matni Rabbi Oshia bar Rebbe. And Rav Yosef says Rabbi Oshia bar Rebbe was also there. V'Rav Safra matni Rabbi Oshia bar Rabbi Chia. And Rav Safra says there was a third person there. Now, this is very important. Rav Safra says there was a third person there. It was Rabbi Oshia bar Chia. So at lekame ger shemal v'lo tava. So a ger that he did brit milah and he did not yet do tevilah came to them. So amrulei shahikan ad lemachar v'nat bilinach. So they told him, listen, wait until tomorrow, the next morning, then we're gonna take you to the mikveh. That was the story. So shma mina tlat. So you learned from this story 3 things. Number 1, shma mina ger tzarich shlosha. You learn that a ger needs 3, because Rav Safra made a big deal to say, there were 3 people there. Don't think it was 1 or 2 people, there was 3 people there. So you see from there that a ger needs 3 people. Ushma mina eno ger ad sheimol veitbol. And number 2, you see that you need milah and tevilah, because he did the milah and now it was time to do tevilah. So they told him you need to do the tevilah also. Ushma mina ein matbilin ger balayla. And also you learn that they told him wait until tomorrow, wait until the next morning. Why not do it now? Because ein matbilin ger balayla, because they can't do tevilah at night. Why not?
It's not siniyut.
What do you mean?
The only reason that the lady goes to the mikvah at night time because of the siniyut. Yeah.
No, that's a different. There's different halachic reason that
I know. But why they don't take it at night time?
I don't know. It's a good question. I am not sure. I don't know. I don't know, but for a lady, that's a different story. That's a completely different story. Because we're worried that if she goes during the day, she's going to go early before the Shiva Nakim are over during the day.
I thought that's the only reason that they go at night time because of the siniyut.
No, it's because you need the day to be over. You need the complete Shiva Nakim to be over, and then once it's over, then you can go. But you can't even go in the next.
If she goes next day, that's short.
Yes.
Over. Has to go night time.
Yes. That's because right. So I'm saying that's because we're worried that somebody might go early. Chachamim said you can't go during the daytime because we're worried somebody might go early. There's big machlok rishonim. Okay. V'nema. So the Gemara says, "V'nema shema mina nami ba'inan mumchin." The Gemara says, you could learn a 4th thing also, that you need mumchin. Look who was there. Was Rabbi Oshia bar Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Oshia bar Rebbe, all these chachamim were there. So you could learn that you need 3 people that are mumchim. It can't just be, any beit din of 3. It has to be people who are experts in this area of gerut. So the Gemara says, no, dilma iklu. Maybe they just happen to be there. You don't have a proof that you need mumchin just because they were there. It happens to be they were there. Okay, Rabbi Chia, Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, ger tzarich shelosha. He says ger needs a bedin of 3. How do we know that? Mishpat ketiv be, because it says mishpat, right? The pasuk says mishpat achat yelachem velager, that you have the same mishpat, and mishpat always means judgment that you need a bedin of 3. So you learn from here that for a ger, you need a bedin of 3 to become a ger. Okay, so I guess we'll stop here.